was born in May the 23rd, 1919, and I was
Right
born
after
right
the
in this
Second World-
house.
Right after the Second World War. That's what Al Trombley was telling me,
Yeah.
that you lived here 70 years.
70 years.
Because in 19 and 70, that'd be 89, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
70 years.
And I was born right in this house,
Yeah. And your name is Roy Thomas.
Roy Thomas, yeah. You gotta put that.
Yeah. And we're talking in a little farmhouse on the edge of the Smilkameen River, just where the Tulameen joins almost.
That's right.
In Princeton, British Columbia.
Yeah. And my grandfather he came from New York originally. His people came out from England, and he came from New York, and his father was a doctor, but he was trained a little bit in medicine, and but he had a more of an adventurous type of guy, and he took off in the California Gold Rush of 1849, I think.
Yeah,
it
the
was.
49ers they used to.
Yeah, and he crossed the continent with a small gang of men, and I'm not sure whether he crossed the continent. I think he went around by Panama Canal
Uh-huh.
and come up to San Francisco and was in the gold rush there. And when the gold rush petered out, why, he came up to Victoria and started panning gold along the Fraser and about
Yeah, those bars. Yeah, the
and
various-
those bars
Yeah.
around Hope.
Uh-huh.
And I guess those old timers they went back in, spent their winters a good deal in Victoria
I
because
think they did. They came out
and they'd plan in
and
the
they
summer
tried to
and
earn
come
enough to grub stake their winter.
and then go back.
Yeah.
Anyway, about somewhere in the 1850s, guess closer to 1860, Governor Douglas got a hold of him and he sent him into Princeton to find a trail into this valley, to establish a route into the valley. And he went up practically where the Hope Road is today. He went up, Skagit Creek and over the top there and into down what the old timers used to call Roach River, and they call it. There was two creeks joined up there where the Public Works building is at the summit.
Yeah.
The Canby
Manning
Creek.
Park there.
The Canby Creek and the Muddy Creek joined about there, and they formed the what they call the Smilkameen River now. But at that time it was called Roach River, and it goes down and just joins the Facetin and comes down into Princeton, down to where this is Smilkameen. And that road, there's Hope Road and the old Roach River Trail. The Roach River Trail between here and Smilkameen Falls, it follows the general course of the Hope Road, but it went down into the valleys and up.
Yeah, it followed closer to
Yeah.
the river.
I rode that trail when I was about with my cousins, the McDermotts. We went in there with pack horses when I was about 15 years old, something like that. Maybe a little earlier than that. I was pretty young. And we went in there with pack horses and camped there. My uncle took it. My uncle, the McDermott Meadows. My uncle Henry, he took up a place there, right where it's called McDermott Meadows there, and we used to go. I used to go with my cousins in there for a couple of summers and camp in there. And
Gee, I'll bet that was fun.
And there was
15 years old, huh?
well, I don't know. I don't think I was that old.
Gee.
I think I was about 11 or 12 when I
yeah.
first went in there.
Oh, what an adventure, huh?
Yeah, well, the road was built up. They built that road over a long period of time, you see, and it was,
Yeah, it wasn't really completed till
no,
in
it
the
was
50s,
built, when
wasn't
we went in there, it was built up to about where the mine is.
it? Yeah, yeah, and then the last hill.
That was about as far as, and you took off there on the top of Kennedy Mountain.
I know, I
and
walked
joined the
that
Roach-
road.
And joined the Roach River Trail.
Yeah,
And it went down
yeah,
into Friday Creek and up and
Yeah,
down
yeah,
into
yeah,
Saturday
yeah,
Creek,
yeah.
two forks of Saturday Creek,
Yeah.
and up and then into the two forks of Sunday Creek. It was quite an adventure for
I'll bet you.
that time.
I'll bet the game and stuff was something fabulous in those days,
Well, I tell you what was great. You could go out in the Roach River or the Smelcomine River there around McDermott Meadows at that time,
huh? Mhm.
and it was nothing to catch 60 fish an hour.
As fast as you threw it in, huh?
As fast, pretty near as fast as you threw it in, and we'd go out there and at that time, when I went the first time I went out there was Jack McDermott and Alan and Alistair McDermott and me. We went with pack horses. Well, not with a pack horse and saddle horses to be exact. And we camped there for 2 or 3 weeks, and we came back. And the next year the Hope Road was built into where Copper Creek is.
Uh-huh.
And that year, Mrs. McDermott came, my Aunt Angie, she came out there, and she camped there, and we spent a good portion of the summer there doing assessment work on,
On claims?
no, the see, Henry McDermott took that place up
Oh,
as a
yeah, you
town
had
grant.
to keep it up. You had to do so much work
You
on
had
it.
to do assessment work. And
Yeah.
Henry died shortly before that, and
Oh.
Alan and I and Alistair went out there, and we were doing assessment work on
So
the
that you'd
place.
finish up his,
Well,
you
we
finished?
built a fence there, and it was quite an adventure, mind you. So some of the older cousins like Bruce and them coming. Eventually, they built a cabin there, but eventually they lost the place. But it was.
did you have to stay on the land and work it every year?
Well, no, it's a case of keeping up with the paperwork.
Oh. That stuff.
Yeah, well,
The job's not done till the paperwork's all finished, right?
yeah, that's right. But anyway, it was quite an adventure at that time, and they were on the way in. You saw the odd deer, but on the way in, mostly there was cougar around at that time.
You saw cougars?
Oh, sure, I've seen cougars.
You know, guys go through their whole lives, like myself, and never see a cougar in the woods.
Mind you, they're scarce. I've seen about 3
Yeah?
in my entire time, and
Yeah.
actually, I shot one right above this flat there, above the railway.
Right here at
remember
right
seeing-
out of town here.
Yeah, just a few years ago. Well, let me see if I can put. Well, I guess it's getting on towards 15 or 20 years ago. There was my sister had a place blow here.
That got sold to the
To-
sawmill?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, it's sold to the sawmill
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
And she was renting shacks on that place.
Mhm.
And there was a little teenage girl walking back and forth up the track to school there.
Mhm.
And one morning I went down there with a dog, and the dog saw the darn cougar in the center of the field about the same time as I did.
Yeah.
And I yelled at the dog, but I was too late. He just took off after that cougar and chased it across the tracks and up a tree.
Oh,
But I'd have been just as happy if that cougar had kept right on a going
out of the country. Yeah.
out of the country. But I went up the railway bank and grabbed a pointed stick on the way up. There happened to be an old piece of 1x4 laying there, and it had
Yeah.
broken in a long splinter.
Yeah.
And I grabbed the stick and up where the dog was jumping at the bottom of the tree, and the cat
Yeah.
was hissing at him about 20 feet up. And I grabbed him by the collar and pulled him back off, and
Yeah.
I stood there and for back, and I looked at the damn thing, and I thought, Jesus, that's too big a cat to leave
Running,
leave alive around here. There's too many like, small kids
Yeah,
coming back
yeah,
and forth.
sure.
So I thought about it for a while, and there was a guy and his son came by. What was the guy's name? He run that pantry place for a while. Can't think of his name. He was a Jehovah Witness, and he had a great big son anyway. And they came by. I pointed the cougar out to him, and the son was interested as heck. He stayed around. The other guy, I said, well. I said the old man, he went. Mercer was the guy's name.
Mhm.
He went in, and I told him to tell Gil to come and take care of the cat.
Yeah, Alan Gill. the king.
Yeah, well, Alan Gill didn't happen to be handy, I guess, and he never showed up. And I was getting sick of waiting there, and the cat was getting kind of big,
Ominous.
kind of restless up the
Yeah,
tree.
yeah.
And so I sent the Mercer boy down here to get my rifle,
Mhm.
and
Like your old 30-30 or what?
the old 303.
Oh, yeah.
I brought after the Second World
Oh,
War.
you brought your own rifle back with
Oh,
you?
no!
Oh.
I didn't bring my old rifle back. You could buy. You had to turn your guns in when they discharged you.
And the serial number had a match, right?
Yeah, and anyway, why I sent this one I bought from. I think I bought it at the Army and Navy, and they cut it down into being a little bit of a sporting rifle. You see.
Mhm. Cut off a lot of the weight, huh?
Yeah, take most of the wood off the barrel.
Yeah.
So I sent the Mercer boy down, and at first my sister wasn't sure whether she was going to let him have it, and anyway, after a while, she let him have it, and he came back with the rifle, and I still didn't want to shoot the darn cat very much. And older Johnny O'Rourke came along, and a man that was working with him,
Uh-huh.
and the man says,
You weren't far from the dump.
"No, I was right here. You can see
Yeah.
you can see the tree right there, right
Yeah.
about halfway between this crossing and the crossing down to the mill there."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was right. The tree is on the right. It was on the right of way fence, and it's not against. It was against the law to shoot those darn things at that time, but it wasn't against the law to shoot them on your own property. Mind you, I didn't know it was against the law to shoot them.
Yeah.
And I figured, well, that's too big a cat to leave alive when around that close to town.
Mm-hmm.
So Johnny O'Rourke and his workman came along, and the workman said, "Oh, give me the gun. I'll shoot it. I'll shoot it. I'll shoot it." I said, "No, it's going to be shot with my gun. I'm going to shoot it."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He might just wound it too.
Well,
All excited, huh?
Well, no, he might have been a good shot. I don't know, but I figured if it was going to be shot with my gun, I'd shoot it.
Uh-huh.
So I backed off a little bit and got a good rest on the tree and on another little tree, and I got it right between the eyes.
It didn't even quiver hardly, huh?
And it just fell out of it was dead before it left the tree,
Oh,
and
yeah.
fell out and rolled down under the right of way.
What did you do with them?
I went in and reported it to Gil.
Mm-hmm. And then he had to come out and look.
He come out and took the cat.
No, I see.
But mind you, I was using Army surplus ammunition,
Oh, yeah.
steel-headed stuff.
Yeah, didn't expand.
You could hardly see where I'd hit it.
Yeah.
It was a great skin it had been. You
Oh,
could hardly
yeah,
see
sure,
where.
it wouldn't have been damaged.
Yeah.
Well, when he did it. Well, anyway.
Well, I don't know. He called me. He says, "Well, he says it's against the law to shoot him, but seeing that you tried to get a hold of me, why?" He
Yeah.
says that's fine. He
Yeah,
says, and
yeah.
he said, then he says, "Don't use Army surplus ammunition in the past. You never know where that's going to carry to."
Oh, I'll bet that thing just kept sailing, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Sure. They
Yeah.
just keep rolling along.
Uh,
In one side, note the other.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, why getting back to to to
Your childhood there.
history,
Yeah.
that McDermott Meadows was quite an episode when I was a kid, and and
Did they ever raise anything up there, or did it ever get that far? Like, did they have enough cleared to?
well, no, I don't think. I don't think they pastured maybe horses there for a bit, but that's about as much. And built a cabin there. They intended to, but times were strange in that time. And,
That would have been what, in the
if Uncle
20s?
if Uncle Henry'd have lived,
Yeah.
they'd have probably developed the place up there.
Uh-huh.
But it didn't get they didn't get around to.
Oh,
Huey Allison was helping them develop it a little bit, and between the anyway they kind of lost the place, but it was an early endeavor up there.
I'll
A
bet.
few of the other town kids camped on the place with the McDermotts too, like there was a Mrs. A.L. White run a hardware store, and her daughter went up there and for a while one summer, and she's Mrs. Freddie McRae now.
Sure.
Yeah,
I know her.
yeah,
She ties flies.
yeah,
Yeah.
she went up there one summer and
Uh-huh.
camped on the place, and
Did she like to fish?
well, I could tell you stories there, but were told to me, but I won't.
But anyway, she liked to tie flies.
Yeah.
She was a good fly tire.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
uh,
So who else do you remember that went up there with you?
oh, let's see. There was a time we went up there, and we they took they hired their pack horses out sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and
To the government people?
no, this one time there was the Ed Burr. He's
Oh,
an
yeah, yeah.
old timer here.
Yeah, the garage,
Had the first garage
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
You probably heard about
the
it.
Ford dealership.
Yeah, Ed Burr and his son Elmer,
Yeah.
and they hired McDermott's horses to pack their grub in from the end of the road right to Lightning Lakes.
Uh-huh.
And Ed and Elmer camped on Lightning Lakes on the far end of the first Lightning Lakes,
Uh-huh.
and
Oh, I bet it was beautiful then.
yeah,
Oh.
and they were fishing in there. It was they were trying. Ed Burr and McCaffrey were trying to develop the thing as a sort of a fishing area. I think.
Oh, yeah, that's Doc McCaffrey.
Doc McCaffrey,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And
I could tell you some stories about Doc too. I'll
Yeah.
bet you can tell me.
oh
With
yes,
Dr.
I
McCaffrey,
bet
what a
you've
guy.
heard lots of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, why we packed him in there, and we had to go out after a certain time and pack him back out again
Mhm.
to see.
Mhm.
And I can remember that trip. We left at McDermott's Meadows, and the fool kids, we didn't take enough grub with us, see.
Mhm. So you ran out and got hungry.
And we rode all day and got up to about where a little past where the lodge is up there, Pine Woods Lodge, I guess they call it, and the concession up there.
Mhm. Yeah,
We're a little
yeah.
past that, and that's where the trail turned up and went over a little mountain and down into the first Lightning Lake.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so we got up to where the trail turned up this mountain. There'd been a cabin built in there before, and it hadn't been very long, because there was all wood chips all
Brand new,
over the
yeah,
place. So we
yeah.
camped there that night, and
Yeah.
we'd run out of grub, and we were four of the hungriest kids you ever saw
You
in
were looking
your
for
life.
anything to eat, huh?
And we lit a fire there, a little chilly, and we lit a fire and sitting there, and darned if we didn't shoot a fool hand.
You got one, yeah?
We shot a fool hand.
For 4 kids?
Yeah, 4 kids. There was a guy, another kid named Jackie Duhamel, who was Florence Allison's son by her first marriage. He was with us, and he was a little older than Alan. He was the oldest kid with us. And boy, were we hungry kids. And we shot this food head, and we thought, well, how are we going to cook it? So we dug a hole and put the food hen in the hole, and put a little layer of put grass and stuff around it, a little layer of dirt over it,
Yeah,
and then moved the fire over.
yeah, move the coals over the top, yeah.
And we let it cook there for about maybe an hour and a half, and then we dug the darn thing up. Well, boy, we hadn't done it right, I can tell you, because it was still raw, and we couldn't stomach it even as hungry as we were. So it was a wasted food head. Well, the next morning these 4 hungry kids packed over this little summit and down into Lightning Lakes, and around the end of the lake.
And you found the guys, huh?
Oh, we found Ed Burr and Elmer
Yeah,
Burr's
yeah.
camp, and they had I think it's a grandson of Ed Burr's with them. George Matheson was his name. Everybody called him Sonny Burr. There's quite a story about him later.
Mhm.
But anyway, he was a lot younger than me. He was just
Kind of at the nuisance stage?
no, he was a
No?
little
Was he
beyond
pretty
that,
good?
But
Yeah.
but he, the only person up there, the only person up was Sonny Burr trying to light a fire. And Elmer and old Ed were
They
still
were asleep.
sleeping in the tent. And right between where we went around the end of the lake, and right between where Burr crossed a little glacier spring coming down off the mountain.
Icy cold.
And we had to wade that spring to get to Burr's camp, you see. And I never felt colder water in my life. Oh boy, was that cold.
Right off the glaciers up there, huh?
Yeah.
Melting off.
And anyway, we got in, and Elmer and old Ed woke up, and they came out, and they says, well, you guys just buzz off for a little bit, and we'll have breakfast when you get back, he says, and you
guys were starved.
you take your horses and go and, yeah, we were darn near starved. You take
And he's telling you to wait.
Well, he just woke up.
Okay. Yeah.
He didn't even know the score yet. He didn't hardly wiped the sleep out of his eyes, you see. And we
You buzzed off.
We wanted to see the second lake. But we were still hungry as rats, but we still wanted to see that second lake, you see.
Mhm.
So we took the darn 4 horses and rode up to the second lake.
Mhm.
And the trail was damnably poor up to the second lake. There was fir limbs hanging over it. The first guy on the fir limb, he'd ride by and bust the fir limb forward to the fir limb and come back and smack
the
the
next
second guy either on the head or in the chest.
No.
Anyway, we got up to look at
Yeah.
up as far as the second Lightning Lake, and we turned around and came back down again, and oh, by that time we were just ravenous, you know.
Mhm.
Got back to Ed Burr's camp, and he had a nice big pot of mush cooked and what have you, and he took a look at me, and I guess I was so damned hungry.
Your eyes were bugged right out.
He took a look at me, and he says, "Old Bill Thomas, get the wrinkles out of your belly." And I was just saucy enough, you know. I says, "Old Bill Ed Burr, get the wrinkles out of your own belly." I'm damn glad he didn't take offense, though.
And take the pot away.
Because boy, that must taste good. I'm telling you.
I'll bet there wasn't
I
any
think
left.
that was the hungriest I was ever in my life. Was that?
All that work, huh?
Yeah.
And then sleep, and then you're young too, right?
Yeah.
Growing.
Boy, I think that was the hungriest I ever was in my life. Anyway, we about 10 o'clock we packed him back over this little ridge and back down to right down to McDermott's Meadow where the road had got up just about that far then, and he could take a truck there and get his stuff right back to town.
Yeah, he had a Ford truck there, of course.
Well, if he didn't have it, I just can't remember. But if he didn't have
He should have been the Ford dealer.
yeah, if he didn't have, he could easily hire one.
Yeah, yeah.
And anyway, that's another incident I remember about McDermott Meadows.
I got to tell you how hungry I was one time.
Yeah.
His friend and I, we took our bicycles
Yeah.
and we drove 15 miles north of this town on our bicycles, you know,
Yeah.
and we got caught in a thunderstorm. And the skies just opened. Just open, so I thought, oh man, am I ever hungry? So we took refuge under this bridge, and we were going fishing, so we had our fishing equipment.
Yeah.
And somehow, normally fish don't bite during a thunderstorm, you know. Normally they just are off.
Yeah.
Well, I caught this one, and he's about this long.
Yeah.
And Norman, that's my buddy, he was about 17 and I was about 16 or so. And we had this one fish, and we were both hungry. So there was dry driftwood underneath the abutments of the bridge. We made a little fire, and we cooked this fish, and it was, maybe 7 inches long.
Yeah.
And there's two guys, I weighed about 170 pounds in, and he weighed about 185.
Yeah.
And we had this one fish, and we toasted it like a hot dog over that fire.
Oh, yeah.
And then we took our knives and carefully, you know how kids are, they watch to make sure it goes right down the middle. And we took our jackknives and cut it right in two, and each had half. I think we ate it skin, bones, and all. Gee, that was, boy, I can still, that was the best food I've ever eaten. You know, I could have a big 5-course meal, and it wouldn't taste any better than that little fish did at that time.
Anyway, we made such a damn mess of this, trying to cook this grouse that we wouldn't touch it anyone else.
I'll bet it got really rotten in the soil there, huh?
Something
Sort of
went-
half.
Something went wrong.
Yeah, it was cleaned, of course.
Yeah, it was clean.
Yeah, yeah.
But we didn't eat it. I can
Yeah.
tell you that. But that's another story. I can go.
Well, just let it wander wherever
Yeah,
it goes.
I'll tell you the story of Thomas Meadows. That's another one that's quite interesting.
Okay.
It's above Allenby, along the railway between Allenby and Copper Mountain. And
Is it still open or is it grown in now?
oh, there's 3 or 4 houses on the place now.
Oh, there is.
But there's 3 or 4 houses. One of the women's got a house on it that works for the hotel. Big tall woman. I think she was some connection with the Willises.
I wouldn't know. I guess.
No.
That we won't worry about that.
Anyway, about if I take you the history of my dad, but this is one of the episodes in it. He'd sold another place down that comprises about where the Princeton Golf Course is down there. He took that up as a ranch back in about 1900.
Mm-hmm.
It adds into his story quite a bit. But anyway, when he'd sold that, he made quite a little money on it, and he built that. He built a 2-story building in town, on the main street of town, right where Mike the barber works now. That was a 2-story and had a hall upstairs. But that's a part of his story too. But at the same time, he was one hell of a go-getter. He must have been. He went up to. Let me see if I can yes, he went up to above Allenby there, and he found this lake, and it was, there wasn't too much carpenter. There was little carpenter work around town then, but I don't know. My mother had a sort of a bent towards ranching and farming,
Mm-hmm.
and he bought this area where this little lake was, and
I think I've been there.
and he drained the railway up to Copper Mountain hadn't been built at that time.
Uh-huh.
It was before the railway up to Copper Mountain was built, and he dug a channel in from the shallow end of the lake and kept deepening his channel, and he drained the whole lake except for what we used to call the pothole was in the far end of the lake,
Uh-huh.
and he didn't get this whole channel dug deep enough
Uh-huh.
to drain it.
Yeah.
He drained the whole lake, and he put a wooden flume to carry the water out of the lake, and the place, after he did that, the place was producing about 90 tons of swamp hay a year. It was a mixture. He planted a little other hay along with it, but
Mhm.
being a lake bed,
It was fertile.
it took a while for anything like the rye or red top he planted along with it. It took it a while to take effect, and the swamp hay more or less had choke it out to a degree. But
Uh-huh.
anyway, the place was producing about 90 ton of hay a year,
Uh-huh.
and
And he sold that, or did he have
well,
cattle?
no, he go up. At that time, he had this place here built, and he had an
Oh.
acre right where this house is.
Uh-huh.
You see,
Yeah.
and he had this huge team of Clyde horses,
Oh, there.
great big huge.
They were the hay burners.
Well, and at that time we were keeping 2 or 3 cows down on this acre here,
Uh-huh.
and he went up there and he drained this lake, and he built a little cabin on it, and every August the whole family get this wagon we had and load it up with stuff, and go up and camp on that lake and put up the hay.
Uh-huh.
But he had to bring his mowing machine and his rake up there too.
Yeah, yeah.
I still got the old mowing machine, the old bush rake sitting out there,
Yeah.
and the old wagon is sitting out there down by the railway, all gone to pieces.
Yeah.
But he grow 90 ton of hay up there, and we camp up there. He had like little camp stoves and
I'll bet that was like a holiday.
yeah. Well, yeah, they go up there every year and put up this 90 ton of hay. It
Yeah.
was good, hard work. He'd sometimes hire men to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, I can remember at that time, I was only 5 or 6 years old.
You were 2 feet 6 inches tall.
Well, no.
Okay.
5 or 6 years.
Okay. I'm just
And,
teasing you. I'm just teasing.
Yeah, and my mother at that time, my mother have me at the cabin, and the rest of the family be out where, and a hired man or two would be out putting up this hay.
Uh-huh.
And my mother take me and take the little 22 gun. I still got the 22 gun,
Oh yeah.
pump action, and nicest looking
A little Remington or
a little Winchester.
Oh yeah.
And we'd take that gun, and she'd go out around. The place was just crawling with game,
Grouse and stuff. Huh?
grouse and
Yeah.
deer, and she'd go out and she'd shoot a couple of grouse, dragging me along. She'd go
Yeah.
out and we had an old dog that he was a young dog at that time that
Yeah.
tree these grouse for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Put them right up there, and they'd sit there with their heads looking down.
They'd sit there looking at them and bark until
Yeah.
we came, and she'd shoot a couple of grouse, and those grouse they hung around what we called glayberry patches. Right today, I think the Scottish name for them is beelberries, but they're a low bush blueberry or huckleberry. They look and they taste even better than a huckleberry. Oh, they're marvelous.
And those grouse ate those.
You could when you come around those glayberry bush, you could actually smell the glayberries.
Oh boy.
You could smell them.
Yeah, yeah. You're making my mouth water even
And,
after that soup.
And she'd pick a small can full of glayberries, and we'd go back to the cabin, and she'd pluck those grouse, clean them, roll them in dough, and bake them at that cabin. Little camp stove, but so square tin camp stoves they
yeah,
had.
those little kind of sheep herders
Yeah.
stoves, yeah.
And bake them.
Yeah.
And she'd also make up and bake a couple of glayberry pies.
Oh boy.
And she'd do that day after day after day. I marveled at the amount of work that woman could do.
She'd feed you guys well, right
Of
up
course,
there.
we had other stuff, but
Yeah, but I mean,
we-
those special treats.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll remember that to my damn day, the
I'll
way
bet
she
they
used
were
to do
good.
that. And in the morning up there, they'd go out and they'd mow the hay, and then they'd rake it into windrows with this bush rake, and then they'd go up and put it in shocks. And
What, and
in the mornings, you'd get up there in the morning. You'd get up and there'd be 3 or 4 black bears, great big black bears, probably wandering around eating roots and what out where the old man had drained that lake.
yeah?
Yeah, you'd see black bears there every morning.
Gee, this is in August.
And this was in August,
Oh boy.
and
I imagine that was impressive too for
yes,
a little lad to look out there
yeah,
and see those
and
things wandering
I
around.
can remember another thing. The screen, there was wooden hinges or something on the screen door, and the screen door, you'd open that screen door and it'd shut, and it'd make that queerest sound. Everything was so darn silent out there.
Yeah.
And then the old man had, where he brought the horses in after he worked them. He brought them down into where the water, he drained the water way down. Actually, at that time, the railway had built through, you see. But when he first went there, the railway wasn't even there. And he'd go down to where this, where he had a little well way down there, where the water drained under the railway, and a trough coming out of this willow bog where he had the center of where he had carrying it out to this little road, and a water trough on the little road, and he'd go down to this after he'd go down to this well and bail the water out of the well and put it in this trough, and this little V trough, and it'd run out to where the big trough where the horses were drinking it. And those darn big work horses, they could drink.
They could drink water. Yeah.
Oh boy!
Yeah.
They I don't know how you know
put
these
them in a
5-gallon
bucket.
buckets,
Yeah.
oil buckets. I bet they drink 4 of those without stopping.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they were big beasts.
They were big.
They must have been what, a couple thousand pounds?
They were 1900
Yeah,
pounds. They're
yeah.
big horses.
Yeah. Persians, did you say?
No, Clydes.
Clydesdales. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was.
Some of those
there's
memories,
terrific
huh?
amount of incidences there, like what stuff that I've been told when the railway to Copper Mountain went through there. They were building on something called on a contract called Cost Plus.
I've heard of
And they
them.
got the cost
Yeah.
plus 20% or something like
Yeah,
that.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
And the more they spent, the more they got. And
Who would hire anybody on that?
well, that's the way contracts went in those days.
So it
and-
behooved them to spend some money.
And when they went through there, this was a little before. If I was born then, I was very young at that time when the railway went through
Mhm.
there. And when they went through there, they needed some timber for their trestles.
Mm-hmm.
They logged the end of the place, cleaned it out like a park, took the
Oh,
logs they
yeah.
wanted, and the old man
Left it
insisted.
real nice.
Left it real nice. The old
Yeah.
man insisted they left it real nice.
Yeah.
They paid him for the timber,
Yeah.
and they'd see us working the horses. Oh, you can't work horses without oats. Whoop, they'd throw us a sack of oats. And
Yeah. Yeah. Give you some coal.
and I think you'd probably get a little. Well, the railway wasn't through then, so there was no coal there. You see.
Yeah. Yeah. They were just
They-
building track and
They
stuff.
were just building track
Yeah,
and making
yeah.
trestles and what have you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And anyway, I guess the old man did pretty well by the contractors
Yeah,
that went
yeah.
building that railway up
So
past.
your old Clydes did too.
The old Clydes did too.
I bet they loved those oats after all that hay. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you remember any kind of serious things that happened? Like
Oh yes, I was going to tell that. That reminded me.
Yeah.
When the old man was digging the trench, the trench
for the
to
lake,
drain this
yeah.
lake, it was quite a lot. It was quite deep. It was 6-7 feet deep in
So it
places.
was over his head.
Yeah, and he hired a gang of Swedes. And they didn't get along amongst them each other. They were sleeping, and they kind of contracted a bit of it, and they were
Uh-huh.
sleeping in the cabin.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, they didn't get along too well. One of them's name was Ed Lund.
Lund. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and they'd taken the contract, and the old man was living here, and he'd going up there at the time to
Mhm.
see, and he went up there, and all these guys, he seen these guys were sleeping in
middle
their
of the day?
beds
In the middle of the
in the
day?
cabin with crowbars beside the bed.
Oh no!
Two of the crowbars right beside the bed. They weren't getting along.
Oh.
And Ed Lund wasn't there.
Oh.
And the old man was wondering. Ed Lund was the one that kind of did the dealing, to see, and
Yeah,
Ed
he
Lund
handled the
wasn't there.
contract,
And
yeah.
he asked. The old man asked what had happened to Ed Lund. And I don't know. They took off. They were sore as hell
Oh.
with each other, and he took off. But they were
Oh.
still working.
Yeah.
They finished up their contract, and
Your dad paid him off.
Bud paid him off, and he didn't. And he thought they'd killed Ed Lund, They're vicious
He
looking.
was wondering if he was buried in the trench somewhere.
I
huh?
wonder what the hell. But
Yeah.
anyway, a month or two later, he showed up and got his share of the pay. And
Oh,
but for a while, the old man thought
Oh, gee, sleeping with crowbars in their beds.
God knows what. But that's a story I was told. You see,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was too young to have lived
Yeah,
it. But
yeah.
it was one.
Well, it can happen, can it? Little
Oh, yeah.
things.
Actually,
little
something
things
like
get up.
something like that did happen when they were building the railway up there. This is known history. It's in the police records.
Hmm?
There was one guy there that big Russian type, I guess, and a little clumsy in his manners, and he didn't.
Little rough.
Very rough, and
Yeah.
didn't understand the language properly or anything like that.
Yeah.
He was. They had camps. They had Camp 7 and Camp 8 all along the railway where they were building it up. Anyway, the Camp 8 was right beside our meadow, see, and
Uh-huh.
anyway, he was. They were eating around. They sort of picked on this guy, the rest of them, and they were sort of making it miserable for him.
Mhm.
Anyway, he blew his top, and
Kinda
he
went
dragged
berserk?
his sleep through somebody's soup or some damn time, and an argument
His tail, yeah.
entailed, and the men had kind of been riding him a little bit. I guess he was a nervous character, and he up and shot one of them, killed him deader than a doornail. And then he took off.
Yeah.
And they chased, the cops chased him down the river here, past the mouth of Wolf Creek.
Yeah.
And there were some local characters seen him down there. But anyway, they caught up with him. He turned back that way and then started going up to Tulameen River, up past towards Tulameen there, and they caught up with him somewhere up there. And he got the drop on the cops one time. This is written in the police records because there was a sergeant of the police. He used to play badminton with us quite a few years back, and he told me it was written in the records. And he said we couldn't do that sort of thing nowadays, but he said evidently this guy got the drop on the cops once and he got away. The second time they caught up with him, it was written in the records, we just shot him before he shot us.
Yeah.
He says we couldn't get away with that. No,
Yeah.
he got the drop on us once and we just got him before he got us.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's in the police record somewhere in town here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Some people, they just have that little breaking point, don't they?
Yeah.
You ride them too far, and then.
My dad pulled down these when the railway was built. They give him the lumber in the little camps and what have you.
Oh yeah, when they were through. Huh?
When they were through.
Yeah.
And
the little buildings and stuff.
He pulled down the little buildings, and they'd evidently the crew, work crew, had been sitting around these camps at night. They had a cookhouse and what have you, and he'd sitting around in their tents, and they'd been playing poker.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And they'd be they'd lose money. They'd lose these coins.
Yeah, sure. They'd fall down in between.
They'd fall down and then go through the cracks in the floor.
Yeah.
Well, when the old man pulled down the camps, why my two older brothers and my sisters were right up there helping him pull him down. They got a terrific amount of spending money, the old nickels and old dimes and what have you, quarters that these guys had been playing poker with.
Yeah, and they just hit the floor and disappeared.
Boy, were those kids damn near fighting
boy,
over there with that.
That's like turning over hay bales when you got a dog along with you, and the mice are in there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you turn the hay bales over.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
There was a kind of you ever seen a kangaroo mouse?
Yes, I have.
Well,
I called one with a flashlight.
You'd lift these darn bales, the old man and even when I got older, and my bigger brothers and me, even when we two of us would go on one side of the bale and we'd sink the pitchfork right in as far as we could get, and we'd practically lift the whole bale at once and throw it onto the load.
Yeah.
And when you did that, sometimes those kangaroo mice would jump 10 or 20 feet out from where they'd been under those bales.
Yeah. And they go a-flying. Huh?
They just go a-flying.
Yeah, I know. They're beautiful little creatures, though.
Yeah.
They're pretty little creatures.
Yeah, and let's see.
You never had a cat up there with you?
No,
just
I don't think we did.
Just your dog?
Just the dog. And,
but I'll bet he'd chase him then. Huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And let me see, that brought something else.
Maybe you saw coyotes out there too, huh? Would they come around?
Oh, there was a few there, but it was rare. But one thing that I can remember, when I got a little older, the old man used to take great pride. He'd get a great kick that he'd give me 5 cents a load for running the derrick fork. And, And at that time, so we could get a good load on without working too hard, he'd get planks. He made what they call a slip, actually, and say it was 3 by 10 planks, and kind of tapered on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
And he built his hay rack right on top of those 3 by 10 planks that were tapered on the front end,
mm-hmm.
and those horses, you could load a ton of, and he put sides on it to a degree of fronts and backs and sloping sides, and you could throw a ton of hay on those easy because you didn't have to throw it very high. It was just the floor of the slip was only 10 or so inches off the
ground.
grass,
Yeah,
and the hay, the stubble on that was so thick that it greased the ground, you see, even with a ton of hay on it, and the horses could slide that
Just
right
get
along
it
the
right
stubble.
along, yeah,
Those
yeah.
big Clydes could slide it along the stubble with no effort. But when you come into the end of the A-frame shed there,
Uh-huh.
a great big high A-frame shed he'd built,
Yeah.
when you come into the end there, you were always coming in the same place, and it wore right down to the volcanic ash, the dirt.
Uh-huh.
And when these old Clydes, they were smarter than hell. When they'd start to come towards the hay fred, boy, they'd speed up and get that thing a going like
moving
that.
so it wouldn't slow down.
So they didn't have to pull so hard, bringing it right into the front of the
Isn't
shed, you know.
Isn't that wonderful? That's something the tractor won't do.
Yeah.
The tractor isn't thinking like the horses, huh?
Well, it was kind of quaint, those
Yeah.
animals. They were gentle, huge animals, and they were gentle. Lucky they were, too.
Oh, I've heard that.
Some of them, they had hooves on them like
pie
dinner
plates,
plates.
huh? Yeah,
And sometimes you'd be putting a harness on them or something, and they'd accidentally step on your foot.
yeah. And they'd feel it, huh?
You'd feel it all right, but they were that gentle you could reach down and grab the hock at the back of their
That
foot
hair, yeah.
and lift up, and they'd lift their foot.
Otherwise, you were planted there, huh?
Otherwise, you were planted. That's right. Anyway, when I was very small, first the old man put me on. They had one was a little smaller horse, and he used to use it to run the hay rake.
Mhm.
And first thing he put me on the hay rake, see if I could run the hay rake.
Mhm.
Oh boy, I was proud of punch on that hay rake, and I could hardly reach this trip pedal, you know.
Mhm, mhm, with your foot, yeah.
And sometimes I'd leave my foot on the trip pedal too long, and the damn thing had tripped twice. Great big, like a horse's tail coming up,
Yeah.
about 30 or 40 teeth, you know,
Oh,
along
yeah.
at 12 feet wide.
Oh.
They come up bang against the back seat,
Yeah.
and you left your
And
foot.
you're sitting there.
You left your foot on it too long,
Yeah,
you know.
uh-huh.
After a while, I just touched it, and it had tripped once, and that
Yeah.
released the hay and let it go in and.
Oh.
Anyway, the old man, he put me 5 cents a load driving the derrick fork.
Yeah.
And he was proud as hell that I could drive the derrick fork at that age,
Yeah.
you know.
How many loads would you get in a day?
Oh, God, they'd put in 10 or 20 loads a day.
Well, sure. There you go. You made a buck, huh?
Yeah, it made a buck. Oh, boy, a buck was a lot of
I'll
money
bet.
to a kid
Sure.
in that day, you know.
What could you buy for $1 then? I
You
suppose.
would buy a chocolate bar for as big as you're getting now for 5 cents.
Yeah, yeah. So you were in the money.
Yeah, and anyway, mind you, the damned horses were so damn well trained that he'd set this derrick fork. I still got the derrick fork out there.
I got to look at these. Maybe take some pictures of them someday.
He set this derrick fork, you know, and fasten it. Well, that damn thing, and sometimes if it got a good bite, it'd take up half the load at a time.
Mhm.
And usually it took about 3 bites to take the whole darn load,
But
sometimes 4.
Yeah. But sometimes you get it in one grab, huh?
Well, sometimes it'd take a terrific grab of that hay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he'd set the derrick fork, and then he'd yell out, "Hoist away!" And I'd say, "Get up," to the horses.
Yeah.
And them darned old double trees, they'd be sitting down in the volcanic ash, and they'd jump up that high, just
Snap
like
tight, huh?
just the minute the horses started to
Yeah,
move forward, up would come those double trees.
I can see it. Yeah, and they snap tight.
And they'd snap tight, and the horses had walked ahead so many paces, they knew where to stop anyway.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
when they got to where I'd watch the hay, and when it got up to about the right elevation, I'd pull back a little bit and say, "Whoa!" The horses hadn't already stopped there. They knew the routine back, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
then my older brother and sisters, they'd get their forks against a big hanging load of hay, and they'd push on it, you see, and it'd go way forward, or a little bit forward the first time.
Mhm.
They'd let it come back, and then when it went to swing again, they'd give it another push,
Mhm.
and they could direct it pretty near anywhere they
On the
wanted
pile
in
they
that
wanted.
hay
Yeah,
shed.
Yeah.
And then they'd have to pull it apart and spread it around so it built nice and even, you
Yeah.
see.
Uh-huh.
But when the old man would say trip, yeah, or no, he didn't say trip. He had the rope there himself. But when it got to the right spot,
Yeah.
he'd pull on it, he'd trip it, you see, and it'd release the hay. And those double trees, they'd come wham back down it.
Those chains are rattling, huh?
They're just a good. They were, and then I'd have to take the hold of the clevis on the double trees, you know, and back up and pull these great big heavy double trees back
Oh,
so he
boy.
could set the derrick for the next load.
Mm.
That
I
was.
bet you were tired at the end of the day.
Oh, I don't know. I was young, and it was
At
something
least-
interesting, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't you know a kid. But as long as you got him interested.
Yeah. And you were at that time about?
Oh. Let's see if I can.
8 or 9?
Oh, maybe 9 or 10 somewhere
Yeah,
in
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Gee. Well, that was your world, right? I mean, then those were the big events, to being given the jobs like that, being
Yeah.
told you can do that, you can
Yeah.
drive the horses, or you can handle the horse.
Yeah, I remember that for a long time. But it was an interesting do that Thomas Meadows.
Is it went on to the family after a while, or did you have?
Well,
it for long?
eventually, the old man, he times had changed, and the horse and buggy
Yeah, it was gone.
had gone out, and he
Yeah.
sold it to the Summerland Box Company for the timber on it.
Oh, they used the big ponderosa pines, huh?
Well, most there was a
Yellow.
lot of fir, and a lot of very tall jack pine, heavy jack pine,
Big
a lot
ones,
of fir too.
Yeah,
Most
good wood. Then,
Yeah, good
timber.
wood. And I don't think there was too much ponderosa around there. There was an odd one too. There was an odd big ponderosa there
You
too.
know why I said that?
Why?
I've been in there.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Isn't there still a little bit of a lake there?
Oh, there's the people that have got it now. The gal that works in the
Yeah.
cafe was telling me that they've sort of developed it a little different. The deep end of the lake, they've dammed it off from the
Yeah,
rest of the
yeah.
lake, and they've let the deep end of the lake flood again.
Yeah,
And
it's
the
quite a
rest of
little
the lake they've still handling as a meadow, which was
Yeah.
a very, very, very smart thing to do, because the old man never completely got it. The far end of the lake, he got it so he had a strip around what we call a pothole, maybe
Was there a sort of
maybe 60 or 70 feet wide, but he didn't get the far end of the lake completely
Yeah.
drained.
Yeah. Have you been up there recently, Roy?
Oh, I haven't been up there for, let me see, about 1980 I drove up there last.
Yeah. I've been up there, about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And they got a really nice log house up there.
Yeah, oh yes, there was 3 places on
Yeah,
it when I was
yeah.
up there in 1980.
Yeah, beautiful log home there
Yeah.
on one end there.
Mhm.
On the water's edge there.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, now this could be my imagination, but there was a hillside that rose up there.
Oh yes,
Pretty
there's
fast.
there's a side of a mountain
Yeah,
there.
right
I
at
got
the
a
lake.
story I can
Right
tell
up,
about
okay,
that.
go ahead, yeah.
The old man, he wanted to water his horses, you see. And later on, he watered them down at the trough. But later on, he found an old mine up there somewhere over towards the border there, somewhere up towards Ashinola.
Mhm.
And he went up there and he got a heck of a bunch of inch iron
What?
pipe
He did. Oh,
out of it.
huh.
And he brought that, he got more than an inch too. He got some 1.25 inch, 1.5 inch iron
Mhm.
pipe, which he was quite a rustler, the old man, which he made use of later. And he put that from the hay shed, he buried that 1.5 inch iron pipe across the meadow and up that mountain, up about went, oh, I guess he went 200 yards up the mountain, about 600 feet.
That's a long ways, yeah, for laying pipe, that's a long
Yeah.
distance, yeah.
And and he went up to a spring about halfway up that mountain,
And he tapped into it, huh?
and he put a barrel in there.
Uh-huh.
One of these whiskey barrels,
Yeah,
wooden
ones,
whiskey
yeah,
barrels,
yeah.
and
Shoved the pipe in the bung?
and shoved the, well, I guess it was
Yeah.
in the bung, or yeah, it would be
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
bung when I come to think about it,
Yeah.
and put screens in it,
Oh, yeah, filter out the,
filter out the muck,
yeah, so it didn't plug his pipe.
so it didn't plug his pipe.
Yeah.
He put screens in it,
Yeah.
and it carried. Then he could water his horses right at the trough he built in front of the haystack, in front of the A-frame hay shed.
Gravity fed the water right down to it.
Gravity fed the water right
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
and
Well, he remembered carrying those buckets.
yeah.
And dumping them in the trough. No more of that, huh?
No, and anyway, why? And mind you, that was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And anyway,
imagine.
one day, I was pretty young at that time. It was in the stage when the old lady was my mother was dragging me around, going hunting grouse and picking clayberries. And one morning she, the water had stopped running at the trough.
So you wandered up there.
So no, the mom says, "Well, I'll go up and see what's wrong." And she had me in tow, and we got up pretty. I guess we got up within going up this size slope, you know, and it got up within a couple of 100 feet of the barrel where the water started coming.
Yeah.
And I looked up, and here's an old bear coming down
Oh no.
the thing, and Mother had the 22. And I spotted it first, and I dragged on her hand. Look, Mother, a bear! There's a bear! Shoot it! Shoot it! Shoot it!
Oh, with the 22?
She was too smart. She was too smart for that.
Yeah.
But the minute the bear hadn't seen us, you see, he was just
Yeah.
wandering down.
But
the
when
hill.
you started chirping away there,
When I started chirping, he seen me. Boy, you ought to see that bear take off.
the other way,
The
right up
way-
the mountain. huh?
Right up the mountain, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we went on up to the barrel, and know what had happened?
He'd been in there, the bear?
The bear couldn't get a drink of water.
Yeah.
He couldn't get a drink of water. I don't know why, but because he should have been water running into that water.
So he went,
No. So what did he do? He rolled rocks into that darn barrel till he brought the water up to where he could drink out of it.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, he rolled
Raised
rocks.
the level.
He raised the level of the water.
Gee. Amazing.
And the old lady pulled the rocks out of the barrel, and
the
sure
pipe.
enough, the water started running at the trough again.
Gee. Yeah, who says animals are stupid, huh?
Yeah,
They're all different. They're all...
yeah. That's another incident around there. Now, how many more can I remember?
Well, maybe we'll tweak your memory on some other time too. you
Oh
know.
yeah, well,
But how long was the place in your family's possession?
Well,
How many years?
let me see. See if I can put a date when the old man sold that damn thing.
And they made apple boxes out of it, huh?
Yeah, I guess there was quite a
Yeah.
bit of what you call of pine there, because the pine, the Summerland box bought the damn thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I do remember pine up there now, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure they're...
Um,
and beautiful tree. Oh, that's a lovely spot. That is a beautiful spot up there. It sort of faces what, south?
it faces
South and...
No, it don't
south.
face south.
Which
It
way to the hill?
It faces
West?
northwest.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's my compass.
That's
when
your-
I'm in the woods.
Yeah.
If the sun isn't out, I'm no good. But if the sun's out, I can get a bearing.
You get a bearing, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Did you ever wander off on your own up there and get lost?
No.
You were watched pretty carefully, huh?
Yeah, well, actually, in my youth, why, I wasn't watched very carefully. What I
But
mean,
you stayed around, huh?
well, I never got seriously lost, but I know McDermott kids, they never demned if they ever knew where we were. I read with those McDermott kids till
Yeah.
I was 15 years old or
Yeah,
more.
Yeah, yeah. They're your cousins, did you
Yeah,
say?
Alistair McDermott lives up in
Yeah,
that yellow
yeah,
house.
yeah.
He's my cousin.
I don't know if I've met him.
Oh,
You know what? I've been for a while there. I was talking to Al
yeah.
Crumley over there, and I had you McDermid,
Mc-
M-I-D,
yeah.
mixed up with M-O-T-T.
Well, it's not McDermott. It's the McDiarmid.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Is Bruce a relative? Was
Yeah.
Bruce,
Bruce is a cousin. He's a brother of this guy.
Yeah.
You knew
Okay.
Bruce.
Yeah, very well in the Scouts.
Yeah.
Bruce was active with Bud DeWolf and
That's right.
in the Scouts, and I was too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Bruce was my cousin.
Oh, okay.
You're going up to
Well,
that
how about
McDermott
Neil?
Meadows. Why, the old man quite often hired Bruce because he'd get up there ahead of us and he'd have half the damn meadow mowed by the time we got there.
He was
Bruce
a worker.
He was
Yeah.
a good worker.
He was a good man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, how is Neil related to you?
How's who?
Neil.
Neil McDermott?
Yeah. Is
Well,
he a nephew?
Neil is Alistair's son,
Okay.
and he's Len Brewer's son-in-law.
Right. He married Loretta.
Yeah, that's
Loretta.
right.
Yeah. I know Neil as well as anybody. He and I, we're good friends. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was a hell of a kid when he
Oh,
was
I
young.
guess. Yeah. I guess he had a temper.
Oh boy.
But we won't get into that too much.
I remember Tiny Hall talking about it.
Yeah.
He says that bloody McDermott, oh boy. He says, he
calmed down quite
says
a
them
bit.
other kids, they stand back when it comes to him.
Yeah, he's strong. You know. Neil is a real, and he's one of the best fly tyers in the area.
Oh yeah.
Of course, that's my interest, you know, that fly tie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, that's pretty well the story of.
would you like to go eat now?
Oh no,
Yeah.
I had quite a lot. What time it is anyway?
You don't want to wear out the.
Well, I can go into other things. There's tons of them when I get started. Not so much those that actually.
Gee.
Oh, it's only 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Oh, we'll carry on till we use up the tape, huh?
Yeah, okay.
Where'd you get that neat little watch?
Oh, I bought it at Johnny Ewart's. Only I cracked the crystal on it, but it still runs good.
Can I look at it? That's a
Yeah,
neat
they're
one.
dandy.
How long ago did you get that?
They got them in there right now.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
we'll
a
take the
beauty.
name off them. I think they're called
Cardinal.
Cardinal. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful little watch. I
About
thought maybe
20.
it was an old
I
one.
think it's $24, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I've had it for 2 or 3 years now.
Keeping good time all the
Oh,
time.
yeah. You got to be careful not to overwind them. I go never wind it. You got to wind them twice a day, and you never mind them more than about 16 times, just in the one direction. See,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and most of those watches they wind back and forth, and they overwind them. Yeah.
I think more of the time they damage them than they wear out, right?
Yeah.
More of the time they break them.
Yeah. But let me see. My dad, I'll go into my dad's history a little bit.
Kiddo.
And then I can go
Where-
into
where
John
was he
for my
born?
mother's history, which is a way back, and I can tell them what
Sure.
she told me about John Fall Allison and the Allison family history. It goes back to
It
goes back to
yeah.
the 1860s.
Yeah, I read the story of Mrs. Allison,
The
gentlewoman,
pioneer gentlewoman.
gentlewoman. Yeah.
Did you read the ones on John Fall that written by Mrs. McDermott?
Gee, I don't think so. No.
Maybe I
think-
can dig you up a copy. I'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit interesting, but I can go into that history too in little spurts and
Sure. As
jabs,
it comes up.
in odd spots,
as it just sort of fits in.
I can almost make it into a coherent history, but it
Sure.
doesn't cover the thing.
We're not
and a lot
worried.
of the stuff that I know, a lot of other people know too.
Oh,
you see?
well, if it's true, that's
Yeah.
it's going to be that way. Everybody
Yeah.
will know the same thing.
Yeah, well, a lot of it was written up by Graham Allison,
Yeah.
and
I know John and Dennis really well.
yeah,
John Allison
Oh,
and
yeah.
Dennis, yeah.
yeah, John is
I
quite a
really
character.
like John.
Oh boy,
I like John.
He's a-
We've gone hunting together up on Lodestone,
yeah.
Up on the top there, they used to have that cabin. I don't know
Yeah.
if they still do, up by the lake there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That range cabin, and we've gone hunting up there and gone around together. I really have a place in my heart for John. I really like him. Yeah.
Everybody seems to like John.
I like John, yeah.
You wild little devil.
Oh yeah, but
boy.
he's spunky and tougher than rawhide,
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, well, let's go. Now this, there's something in there, Roy. I got to ask you about. Now your dad came from New York.
No, my dad.
Your dad's dad.
No, my dad came from Gloucester, England,
Oh, okay.
and he and their whole family. My uncle Bert came out here somewhere in the Putner in the 1880s sometime,
Hmm.
and my uncle Charlie came out somewhere close to that time,
All from England.
and my dad came out here in 1894. And,
So the brothers went before him.
What? The two,
the
Charlie, Uncle Bert and Uncle Charlie came out before him.
Yeah. In this area here?
Yeah, they all came into this area.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then, in fact, practically the whole family except, the whole family was out here at one time. There was 3 girls and 4 boys.
All from England.
All from somewhere around Gloucester, England, and they all came out here. There was, I got quite a few. There's Kenny Thomas. He drives a logging truck, and then my cousin Bill died here about a couple of years ago.
He had the ranch up the.
That
the
was my
highway.
Uncle Bert's ranch up there.
And Bill had it for a
And
while.
then my cousin Bob, he lived in Silvercrest for a long time, and he just died a little while ago too. He had emphysema very badly for quite a few years,
Mhm.
and he was running, he was managing the Legion a little bit for a while there, before what's his name took over.
Yeah, the one that's married to the lady at the
The
overweight.
overweighty. What?
Yeah, Len, what's his name?
Len. Gee.
Oh, well, we know who he is.
Yeah, we know who he is.
Len is his name, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was an accountant,
Yeah.
a bookkeeper.
Well, Bob was running the Legion for a while before Len was.
Mhm.
He worked in there, and
This Ken Thomas, how old is he?
oh, he's about
35?
just that's about it.
He was a student of mine.
Yeah,
And I think he played on my basketball team.
Ken.
Yeah, I knew him, sure.
Yeah,
He was in my biology classes.
chunky little
Yeah,
boy. Oh,
yeah.
boy.
Dark.
Yeah.
Was he dark?
Kind of, no, almost more blondish, I think.
Oh, okay.
His mother's very blonde.
I might have got him mixed up with a Gibson.
His
I
mother's
think
very blonde.
Did he pal around with a Gibson?
With the Gibsons.
Yeah.
Gibson, you can't tell who the devil he palled
Oh, yeah,
around with.
okay. Yeah. But anyway, getting back, your dad
Oh
your dad came here after his 2 brothers.
yeah.
Well, they must have written glowing tales back to England about how nice it was here.
Know. The thing, my dad, well, I don't know whether I'll go that close into his English history or not.
You don't need to, whatever you feel free with. Just whatever.
Well, I can feel free with it all right, but
Yeah.
well, he was my dad was kind of a wild kid, so to speak. When he was wild, not noticeably so, but he
His foot loose?
No, no.
Hmm?
Just his parents couldn't keep up with him, so to speak.
Oh, lots of energy, huh?
No, he was supposed to be going to this school in England,
Oh, yeah.
and damn it all, they all of a sudden woke up and found that he hadn't been going to school for 5 or 6 years, and they hadn't caught up with him.
And they'd been paying for his school.
I don't know whether they paid for it or not, but they found out. Anyway, they apprenticed him to a sash and door factory.
Oh, so he became a carpenter.
So he became a damn good carpenter.
A Finnish carpenter.
Yeah,
finishing carpenter.
he was a damn good carpenter.
Yeah.
And actually built boats, sure, and he built house trailers.
He built this house?
He built this house.
Yeah, I can see some of the fine work in this house too.
Well,
He probably turned all these off with hand tools, huh?
I could have done.
Yeah.
It was built in 1904, and that was
Yeah.
quite a few years before I was born. And anyway, why when he grew up, he immigrated out to this country, and he came out. He came out to Uncle Bert had come out, and he was working for and Uncle Charlie. They were working for the Douglas Lake Cattle Company.
Oh, yeah, I've read about that, yeah.
As cowboys.
Yeah, really, yeah.
And
Right out of England?
right out of England.
They didn't even know a horse from the other end of a...
Well, I don't know. They adapted. You know something?
Where did they come?
People
Gloucester.
down in the States could say that the old man had an English accent.
Yeah.
But I never heard him with an English accent.
You never heard it that way, huh?
I never heard it. He sounded just as as much a part of this scenery, and he must have lost his English accent
Well,
awful
sure,
damn
yeah,
fast.
yeah, I'm sure. Because they tell me my accent is Canadian now.
Yeah.
And I was raised in Minnesota with a Midwestern twang, you know. and
Oh yeah.
They say that you sure sound funny now after 20 years.
Yeah. And
So anyway,
Uh,
Gloucester, that's a big,
he-
that's a big city, isn't it, Gloucester?
mhm.
And so those guys came out of a great big city and started cowboying?
Well, not Gloucester.
Oh,
Gloucester, it's right on the end of the Bristol Channel. And I suppose it's a fair-sized place. I don't know.
and then,
And my grandfather, my dad's, he was a chunky, I got pictures of him. He was a sort of a short, chunky old man, and he made his living buying up old monastery books from the monasteries back in England and reselling them.
he made a living at that.
He made a living at that.
Gee, how specialized can you get, huh?
I don't know, but that's what they tell me. He made his living.
Yeah.
Anyway, the old man came out here in 1894, and he came over to Merritt.
Mm-hmm. And that's how he got hooked up with the Douglas Lake.
And he didn't get hooked up. My dad didn't get hooked up with the Douglas Lake.
Oh, it was his brothers.
It was his Uncle Bert and Uncle Charlie.
Yeah, okay.
And
Excuse me, yeah, I got that mixed up. Yeah.
and he came out there, and he looking around for something to do, I guess. And this Poolies, they were big ranchers in Merritt area, and they hired him as a ranch hand, and he paid for them for quite a year or two there.
Yeah.
And he used to live on the far end of what's that big lake?
Nicola?
Nicola Lake.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and eventually him, I think, and Uncle Bert bought a little acreage on that far end of Nicola Lake.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, he tells stories of when he was a kid. He built ice boats on that far end of Nicola Lake, and he says he's the fantastic speeds he used to get up.
Oh, the winds up there. Huh?
Yeah, on those ice boats.
Boy,
And
I
then
can believe it.
yeah, and he worked for Poolies for a while, and then he came back over into this country, and he he married my mother about. He came in here about 1894, and he saw John Allison, old John Fall Allison died in 1897, And my dad had met him and talked to him. He told me a few things about old John. His impressions when he first run into the old guy. He was a kind of a sick old man by the time.
He had pneumonia towards the end there. they
Yeah,
said.
he probably died of pneumonia,
Yeah.
but he'd been in a few accidents and fallen
Yeah.
off house
Oh.
roofs, and he was pretty kind of crocky.
And he was hauling stuff over the mountain there. And he got into a situation one time with some horses.
Well, you
was
know, there's
He got hurt there somehow.
yeah,
Very bad. Yep.
and,
Well, it was a rough life.
yeah.
They
But-
lived-
Anyway, why the old man he came in here and nothing much in here, but you couldn't imagine what this town. There wasn't much town up there. I laugh at them.
yeah.
I laugh at them when they say Princeton's 125 years old and it dates back to 1860.
Yeah, that must
Boy,
have been the
you
first
ought to-
outhouse they
you
put up.
oughta- you ought to see the pictures, even the pictures of Princeton in the
Yeah.
1890s.
Yeah.
There ain't a hell of a lot there.
Hey, you know that little log house that used to be up on the hill above Ewarts there? What was that? That little tiny log building up there?
Oh, that wasn't. I think I know. That was a much later arrival.
Oh, it was, huh?
I can show
built
you. There's the little. My uncle, one of the oldest places in here. My uncle Ern built, and one of my father's brothers. He built a little cabin in there. It's
Yeah.
still standing there, and people are living in it. But it's about as. It's about as big as this room, not quite, but they're still living in it, and it's been stuccoed over.
Yeah, the logs are underneath it.
Yeah, there's lots of houses in the town that the old man built. I can Brittner pick out every one of them.
There's one old logger over there in Allison Flats.
Oh yeah, I
There's
don't
a-
know who built that one.
Yeah, that with the white on it, you know?
Yeah.
White between the logs.
Yeah, I know the place you're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about. I can
Square
go
up.
into the history of Allison Flats quite a bit too.
Oh, we'll do that sometime too then, if
Yeah.
you want to, sure.
But
Getting back to your dad.
getting back to my dad, if we keep on track.
That's okay, I don't mind if you don't.
Where
We were up at.
No, he just got
Merritt.
to Nicola when he
Yeah.
came in here, and I don't know whether I should say. He said the first time he saw my mother, there was a pair of legs sticking out from under a berry bush. She was picking berries.
That's how he met her the first time.
It was the first time.
He must have been impressed with the legs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, why?
Yeah.
Let's see. He.
What,
Oh, somebody's
somebody
knocking
here,
at the
yeah,
door.
yeah. Okay, we're on the air again.
Yeah, I'll finish off a little bit about my dad. He
Yeah.
came into it, and he came over in here, and about that time, they were. Allison had 3 houses. The Allisons had actually 4, but one of them burnt down, and one
got
of them
flooded
washed
away.
down
Yeah,
the
flooded
river.
the river. Yeah.
And the third one I tore down myself because the bottom logs were rotted off
Oh.
it. Anyway, that third place was just about being built in about 1890, somewhere in there, 1890,
Mhm.
somewhere between 1894 and 1897 it was being built, see?
Mhm.
And my dad was courting my mother at that time, and he used to build her little places where she could cache things in this log
Oh,
walls as they were being
little
put
kind of
up.
cubby holes.
Little cubby holes, yeah.
Yeah.
And anyway, why they got married somewhere around 1890, somewhere in there,
Mm-hmm.
and
What was her maiden name?
Caroline Elizabeth Allison.
Okay. Yeah.
And anyway, why the first thing they did, as far as I can make out, is they took up this bit of territory that comprises the golf course down there now.
Uh huh.
They had that as a farm,
Uh huh.
and
Was that clear or was that timbered?
Oh, it was timbered all the way down. There was no tailings
What a
pond.
job.
There was no tailings pond there and all. There was a regular forest where the tailings now sit. You couldn't imagine what the
Big
country looked
timber, big timber.
like. Not so big. It was smaller timber than the airport, where the airport
Yeah.
was. There was an awful lot of Ponderosa pine up where that airport is.
Yeah.
But it was smaller timber, more in the bullpine nature.
Ah.
But it was some of it was pretty good too. There was even some Ponderosa over there. Regular forest all the way down from where that where they make wood there, all the way down to the ski hill and beyond. It was a forest all the way. And had some right down where that campground is. There wasn't. It was level, untreed land where most of that golf course is.
Yeah,
down,
sort of sandy soil.
down along the
Yeah.
road there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was all untreed there, and that
Yeah.
was his farm. You see,
Uh-huh.
he took it up and just just get this thing tied together about right. Well, he was having a go of it. The first couple starting out, not much money to speak of, and so he was looking for any jobs he could get. And he, being a carpenter, they hired him to help build the Headley stamp mill.
Oh, yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
working in the Headley stamp mill there, and the foreman is one he tells he was building these big, huge cyanide tanks. Great, huge. I built some
I've
myself
seen
when I
I've
was
seen them there, yeah.
was working in. I helped build some myself when I was working in Allenby as a carpenter. They re-walled them at that time. The old walls were getting a little bit decayed with time, so carrying water for so long. And they re-walled some of them in Allenby, and I actually helped build some of those in Allenby in about 1950, somewhere in there. But anyway, the old man was building cyanide tanks in there, and he was doing all kinds of construction work there. He was a damn good carpenter. And the boss used to come around. He used to say, the boss used to come around to me and he'd say, now young fellow, he'd lay him out so much work. He'd say, now young fellow, this work has got to last you a whole week.
I can give you a story like that too. I worked on the railroad.
Yeah.
And I was in the back shop where they tore the old steamers down, the old locomotives.
Yeah.
And the guys would tell me the same thing. No, John, don't work so fast. That job's got to last you. It makes us look bad if you finish up before we do. And they would tell you that.
Yeah.
And they'd say, get out of sight. If you can't do it, get out of sight. Don't stand around there.
Yeah. Anyway, the old man, and when they were, when the difference between people in those days and they are now, the old man and the old lady were living in a tent frame.
Yeah, with the wooden floor.
Oh, wooden floor and wooden walls up that far.
Yeah.
And he was working. He was working as a carpenter in Allenby, and I think he was not on the Headley stamp mill. And I think he was working 10 hours a day.
Yeah, I know.
And
you just wonder how they did it, huh?
yeah, and anyway, my mother was and them were living around in this tent frame in Headley, and then eventually, I guess when they got that mill built, why the old man moved back up to his ranch up here. Well, in about, I think it was about 1903 or something, the great rumors of the Great Northern Railway coming in here, and there was a little land speculation up and down the valley.
Yeah, which way they were going to be on, which side of the river and stuff.
In
huh?
which side of the river
Yeah,
they were
yeah,
going to be,
yeah.
and some of them people even took up farms on top of Darcy Mountain.
I know.
And thought the railway was going to be up there. They
I know.
couldn't have been engineers.
I read about that. Yeah.
And anyway, the old man's farm was right at where the railway was going to be. And there was a guy speculator come up from Vancouver, and he offered the old man $10,000 for the place.
That was big money.
And well, that's it, you bet.
You got it.
And from then's when he come up here,
Yeah.
and
Bought some of this.
no, he this was after Grandpa Allison died. Why, Grandma Allison and my mother herded their cattle over to Merritt and sold them, and they got pretty damn hard up after the old man died.
Well,
And,
the driving force was gone, right?
Yeah,
The driving force of the family was
Yeah.
gone. Yeah.
and anyway, Grandma Allison she owned property right from East Princeton right up to Allison Flat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And God knows Grandpa Allison owned property right back where Sellers live on the Jura Range.
Mm-hmm.
They had quite a lot of property, and they had quite a lot of cattle at one time. But anyway, after the old man died, I guess he was getting sick for years. Tying this in with my dad, history, you see. Grandma Allison owned this place here. This was old Grandpa Allison's original 160 acres.
Mm-hmm.
It went down into East Princeton, up District Lot 1824 probably.
Mm-hmm.
And this was his home place, this flat right here.
Mm-hmm.
And when my dad come back from Headley, this place had all been sold. They'd been sold off, you see.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that from the book that I read.
And anyway, there was a woman in town bought this acre right where this a woman named Mrs. Coulthard bought this acre right where this house sits.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a lot up on the third bench, just on the edge of the third bench, just above where Johnny Ewart's house is, only on the other side of the road. Mrs. Slowakowski used to live in it.
Sure, I know where that is. Yeah.
And she had that
right
lot.
on the side of Mayhew's Hill there.
Yeah.
Right.
She had this Mrs. Coulthard owned that lot.
Yeah.
And she wanted a house built on that lot.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so she got an agreement with the old man. He'd build the house on the lot
And
for
this lot
this acre.
Yeah.
And that's how he come by the original acre.
is